SME's contribution to employment is around 80%, value added 55%, and SMEs make almost 45% of all investments and 62% of the exports. So we can say that SMEs are the backbone of Turkish economy, and they are the main engine in the development of Turkey, especially in the last 10 years. So as an organization, as COSGAP, on one hand, we are supporting SMEs, and we are trying to develop some support programs for SMEs. But on the other hand, we give very much importance to entrepreneurship spirit and entrepreneurial issues, because you have to keep the source dynamic, and you have to feed the source of private sector continuously. And we call this especially the entrepreneurship development and entrepreneurship spirit. So we can go in two ways. How do we support? We support through programs, but we can talk about two main streams. One of them is about financial issues, financial supports. The other stream is going on the project-based support. So if we come to financial supports, we talk about, first of all, there is a support for the bank credits. We are trying to make easy for SMEs to reach bank credits, but it is limited. It's around 23% of the bank credits are used by SMEs. So we need a really supportive and really strong credit guarantee system. And during the financial crisis, the government started supporting the Credit Guarantee Fund of Turkey, putting a 1 billion Turkish liras, approximately 500,000 US dollars as contra guarantee to the Turkish credit guarantee system. And COSGAP make an important program. We support SMEs. SMEs use the bank credits. COSGAP gave the interest, so it become a easy way to reach to the banking credits. But when we continue, we realize that we also know that you cannot finance SMEs and entrepreneurs, especially innovative and startups, only by bank credits. There is a big gap there, and we started looking for alternative financial instruments. So we start big funds of funds in Turkey for venture capital with European Investment Fund. So the aura, when we started with the European Investment Fund for a new venture capital system, there were only 6 venture capital funds inside Turkey in 2007. And today, after finishing the investment period for the first funds of Turkey, today we have more than 40 venture capital funds located inside Turkey. So it's a big success, and we are going to continue with this process, and we are going to build up more funds of funds inside Turkey to feed up this venture capital system. On the other hand, this venture capital, we should also support business angels inside Turkey, and really big incentives are given inside Turkey to business angels, and the tax incentive inside Turkey for business angels is 75%. And if a project is supported by COSGAP, my organization, the tax incentives goes up to 100%. So innovative and supportive projects are directly supported by this issue. With these two instruments, venture capital, business angels, Turkey has a stock market, and we are also promoting SMEs get inside the stock market inside Turkey. And there is a new market inside Turkey dedicated to SMEs only. And in a way, it's one step before the national market.
Tuna, it's on the stock exchange, a separate platform for this small medium enterprise?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
and it is the step before the national platform. In a way, we put them in an incubator there as well, and they spend some time also the conditions to get in that first step is much more easier. Also, we are supporting almost 80% of their expenses. Also, the capital market stock of Turkey made some regulations to make them get inside it. So this is very quickly when we talk about the financial issues. On the other hand, there are some project supports. We are supporting R&D innovation. We are supporting collaborative actions of SMEs. We are supporting project bases. But I would like to share one of them as it will be more convenient with the subject we are discussing today. We have a separate program in the entrepreneurship development part. And with this entrepreneurship development part, we are supporting in 3 ways. The first way is about awards, young entrepreneurship awards, and mainly they are at the university stage. And each year we give this award, and for each university, 3 projects. For each university, 3 projects are supported. But when I say 3 projects, each university, you have to, it means 500 projects for Turkey, because we have more than 160 universities inside Turkey. So directly more than 500 projects coming from universities. Second part is about incubators. Through the incubators, we evaluate the projects and we evaluate the business plan of entrepreneurs, and if they find to be eligible, we give places inside incubators. And also there is a small parenthesis here. Inside Turkey, there are 4 women incubators dedicated only for women enterprise. And as far as we know, it is only the case in Turkey. So women entrepreneurs can get inside incubators. And mainly, the mainstream when we come to entrepreneurship development is entrepreneurship support program. This goes like that. We started giving entrepreneurial training inside Turkey up to 2010. But only 5,000 trainees were there for the, let me say, we gave training courses for 20 years, only 5,000 people came. And after that, we changed the support system, and we say that if entrepreneurs or trainees undergone our training courses, we are going to support them to create their job by giving some grants. And after 2011, up to now, more than, look at this number please, more than 200,000 individual person gone under our entrepreneurial training courses. And there is a significant number here. 45% of these trainers are women. And through this training courses, more than, let me give you the exact number, 12,000 people created their jobs. And half of this job creation came from women entrepreneurs. So it's a success story, but by doing this entrepreneurship training courses, as you mentioned, the important thing is not all of them should have their jobs. We try to give an entrepreneurial spirit inside the country. So everybody is almost aware of what's entrepreneurship, what's entrepreneurial training. Also, people who undergone these jobs have the opportunity to get employed much more easily, because most of the people will choose the people who has entrepreneurial learning and entrepreneurial altitude. And another issue that we gain from these courses is some of the people forget about creating their jobs, because they see that this is not something like that. They have to rethink again. And they can create their jobs maybe in the future. So I think I should finalize it. Last words, also during these, while we are doing all these issues, we have a very strong international relations. We have in more than 40 countries, from United States to Korea, lots of counterparts, and we are cooperating with them. And in Kazakhstan, we have a very strong and very key counterpart here, DAMO. We are really working very strictly with them. And once again, I would like to thank all the auditors and DAMO for their kind invitation and for your patience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's very interesting. Just to make a couple of housekeeping announcements. We have three extraordinarily interesting presentations to go. We have 20 minutes. I would take the liberty of cutting the coffee break on, on half. We will have until the rule 7 minutes, and then we will have like 20 minutes for discussion, and the coffee break will be. Coffee is not good anyway. If we go to Italian coffee, you know, it will be very different. So coffee is not good anyway, so 15 minutes is enough. So, Antonio.
Thank you, Chair. Previous speakers have spoken about social business, have spoken about the objectives of the government of Kazakhstan when it comes to entrepreneurship and small medium enterprises, about entrepreneurs, which are their roots, their origins. Last speaker was about how they associate with each other, the entrepreneurs, the small medium enterprises, and self-organize. Let's see, what I would like to add is, in this context, what can a government do to foster all this and stimulate entrepreneurship and small medium enterprises? And hopefully maybe also say something about Kazakhstan. On Kazakhstan, in fact, just one data point. This is the picture of the overall GDP of Kazakhstan in the past 10 years, well, until 2012, and how it's split between the traditional, what we call backbone sectors, energy, oil and gas, versus the diversified sector, which is the dark portion of the bar. By any means, what happens in Kazakhstan is that the backbone sectors, energy and gas, and the diversified innovative sectors represents two different stories of the economy. And let's see how in each of those two macro sectors the story of small medium enterprises can be different. Which are the policy areas that the governments can use to support small medium enterprises? Well, mainly three. When it comes to connection, which is creating ecosystems to favor the small medium enterprises, productive capacity, which relates to skills, financials, and infrastructure, and governance, which is basically the policy framework that can possibly foster the SMEs. Now, in the case of the backbone sectors, energy and gas, all these policy areas are in place simply because the government has been obliged over time to put them in place. When it comes to connection, what's important is that connecting small medium enterprises with the rest of the sector in backbone sectors relates to raise awareness that small medium enterprises can contribute in those established sectors, to create continuity of reforms with gradual improvement when it comes to business environment, to investment promotion, investment policy. When it comes to productive capacity, this relates to skills in transferring the public-private dialogue learnings into reforms that can better match the skills that are produced by the educational system to the needs of the private sector. When it comes to financing, we're speaking about inclusion. And when we speak about infrastructure, speak about access to infrastructure for small, medium enterprises in order to be included in the macro sector. And when it comes to governance, governance in established sectors relates very much to improve the regulatory framework so that the government becomes more and more effective in transforming the resources into revenues and in appropriately sharing and enforcing the sharing of the revenues between public sector and private sectors. When it comes to the diversified knowledge-based sectors, those sectors don't really exist, or when they exist, they're fragmented. And that's why the country is still so dependent on energy and gas. And the policy to be put in place about connection, for example, to stimulate small medium enterprise relate to attracting quality investors. And when I say quality, I mean that investors specifically for those innovative sectors have to bring in not only money, but also knowledge, but also connection with the global value chains. When it comes to productive capacity, skills is more creating the right skills. So using the educational system in order to stimulate those generation of entrepreneurs that were mentioned earlier. Financing means using financing as a incentive for small medium enterprises. For example, matching the funds for research and development, and tailor create the appropriate infrastructure, which is not necessarily pipelines or highways like in the traditional sectors, but might be electronic highways and so on and so forth. I'm going to finish. Don't worry. Governance is governance to foster the new sector. So topics related to intellectual property, topics related to measuring the innovation and making the innovation effective. So innovation, it must be financed not only for the research per se, but for the research once the research produces bankable products, sellable products. Finally, let me add that in the case of Kazakhstan, the government of Kazakhstan will be assisted by the OECD, in identifying which are the specific measures for the backbone sectors of the economy, for the knowledge-intensive sectors, innovative sectors, and the pilot, putting in place pilots on both these macro sectors. Finally, I did introduce myself in the beginning. I'm Antonio Somma, the head of the OECD Eurasia Competitiveness Program, and we've been working for the government of Kazakhstan for the past 5 years, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio.
I'd like to especially note that when I read what Antonio has just told us, I have also read reports on competitiveness of Kazakhstan that were recently delivered by OECD, and I'd like to say that among the programs for potentially supporting entrepreneurship, you can find statistical confirmation for some of them that enables you to anticipate good results in those areas. I'd like to turn the floor over now to Boris. Where's Boris? You here? Boris represents the Moscow branch of Youth Business Russia. It's an international network. He's not going to talk about that because his time is very limited, but it's active in 46 countries, and probably it will be active in Kazakhstan as well. Boris, the floor is yours. Thank you. Given that we are in Kazakhstan, I apologize in advance for the mistakes that I might make. I would like to welcome you in Kazakh.
Wonderful.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, спикеры и участники Appreciation. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, speakers, and participants of the session. I'd like to thank the DAMU Fund for the invitation. I'm very glad that before this session we've signed the agreement on the development of youth entrepreneurship in Kazakhstan. I'd be very glad that in the near future the Youth Business Kazakhstan program is established. That will become then number 47 program that is part of the Youth Business International network. I am an advisor in that network, and I head the program that is called Youth Business Russia. And today what we're discussing is that economies need to be competitive. Correspondingly, SMEs need to be competitive as well. And small businesses cannot be competitive without a constant inflow of young beginning entrepreneurs. And this is what I'd like to talk about today specifically, and talk about how specifically you can provide support to the beginning entrepreneurs. The biggest share of entrepreneurs who are beginners are young people, without a doubt. And I'd like to say that it is much easier for me to deliver my speech now after the plenary session earlier today, where the distinguished president of Kazakhstan said that youth employment is the most important task after the video address from the UN General Secretary, where concern was expressed associated specifically with this area of youth employment. And on the slide you can see those terrifying numbers, somewhat terrifying numbers in the area of youth employment and opportunities for the youth. I don't want to say that entrepreneurship is a cure-all, but it is one of the most realistic ways to ensure employment among the youth. And distinguished Professor Mohammed Yunus also mentioned earlier today during the plenary that we should not promise to young people that we will provide employment for them. We should turn young people from people who are looking for jobs into people who are creating jobs for themselves and for other people. I'd like to focus your attention now on this, and this report can be found on our website, Youth Business International website, among other places. In 2013, there was a special survey conducted called Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. Usually it studies the condition of entrepreneurship in the countries, but in 2013 they conducted a study specifically on the condition of youth entrepreneurship. And there were many findings. Unfortunately, not all the countries participated. I hope that Kazakhstan will take part in the next such survey. But I can say, to continue with what my colleagues have been discussing, obvious issues were identified in the areas of such areas as education among young young entrepreneurs. They also have elevated expectations that are not always matched. And for the post-Soviet countries, another characteristic is that the media does not provide adequate coverage of entrepreneurship, and the public image of entrepreneurs is not always positive. Another thing that is different country to country, that problem doesn't exist in the United States, but it definitely exists in Russia, and I heard that it exists in Kazakhstan. Fear of failure is what I'm talking about. People who fail for the first time are evaluated negatively by their peers, and they don't ever try to do something again. And this is indeed a problem. In order to address the issue of providing a correct support to youth entrepreneurship and a comprehensive support of this type, this is being discussed quite widely internationally. In September 2013, there was the first Youth Entrepreneurship Congress in London. Jonathan took part in it and spoke there. And the Congress that Jonathan mentioned, the Global Entrepreneurship Congress in Moscow that took place in March 2014, we discussed specifically the issue of how to support the beginning young entrepreneurs. So the main forms of support are depicted here on the slide. It's very simple here. 5-10 years ago, people used to say that finance is the most important thing should be provided to the young people. You know, if it's only finance, we can generate even more problems for them than they had before the financing became available. And it's something very important that is being done by the DAMU Fund, among others. Funds should be accompanied by training and education. People should be aware how to develop their businesses, and I'm very glad that these components are very strong here in Kazakhstan, consulting and training for young entrepreneurs. And I can say that also in the nearest future we should combine our efforts to add to the third component that is called mentoring. And I think in Russian, the Russian word rather than its English equivalent is more clear. It's when an older, more experienced colleague is training you. When I just started this, no one believed that older, more experienced entrepreneurs be supporting young entrepreneurs. But now it is actually happening, and I'll be very glad to see the same kind of movement here in Kazakhstan in several years' time. And I know that there are many experienced entrepreneurs here already who are providing various forms of support through master classes or through other formats. But if you provide this kind of support to the young entrepreneurs, I think in several years' time, that would mean that you get a new generation of young entrepreneurs that will be supported so well that you'll have what we have in Russia now. When in 5 years' time, the former trainees who were mentored come and say that they would like to become mentors themselves. And another thing about mentoring, what often happens, and we often have arguments about that with bankers and lawyers, when bankers say, for example, that's the greatest the greatest ways to ensure that loans are repaid is loan security, collateral, or guarantees, which is something that young entrepreneurs often lack. So mentoring is not a legal mechanism, but it is quite effective in this area, among others as well. It's quite strong. And in conclusion, I'd like to say that last year we had All Russia Forum for Mentoring in Entrepreneurship. In 2014, we are planning to hold an international forum on the same subject, and I invite our colleagues from the Damu Fund, from the Association of Entrepreneurs, to take part in this event and to jointly develop mentoring in all of our countries so that experienced entrepreneurs are able to make an even bigger contribution to support young entrepreneurs. Thank you very much.
Now, last but not least, Tiffany McVitie. She made her business actually developing of the enterprises, entrepreneurship per se. So, Tiffany.
Also, forgive my accent, but I am going to try to say a welcome in Kazakh. Kormieta Kanimdar Mien Murzalar Salamat Sizbia Mien Ushin Ulkin Kormiet Osa Formada Katskanima Damu Korina Ulken Algasimd Bulgarium Rakhmiat.
I understand.
Oh, good. Thank you, honorable chairpersons, and thank you, Damu Entrepreneur Development Fund, for putting together such an important session at this esteemed Astana Forum. It is an honor for me as a small business owner and author to present on a topic I'm so passionate about, entrepreneur development. I was introduced to the Astana Forum by the Damu Fund Kazakhstan Business Connection Program. The Damu Fund brought their delegation of IT sector entrepreneurs to my business in Seattle, Washington. Oh, very good. I was introduced to the Astana Forum when the Damu Fund brought their delegates of IT professionals to visit me in Seattle, Washington. I enjoyed hosting the delegation's visit to the state where Microsoft, Starbucks, Amazon.com, and Boeing Airlines call home. Spending the week in Astana, I have met dozens of high potential entrepreneurs and small business owners through 2 half-day pre-conference entrepreneurship training sessions organized by the Damu Fund. The first day, I met with women entrepreneurs. Lawyers, dentists, cattle breeders, and educators were among the participants who attended my entrepreneurship leadership training program. During the second day of training, Girandola provided Kazakhstan Business Connection participants a workshop called Doing Business in America. There, we shared tools and answered questions about exporting, strategic partnerships, joint ventures, and expanding businesses. Listening and teaching helped me better understand the strengths and opportunities in Kazakhstan, specifically in terms of developing a competitive enterprise in a competitive global economy. I hope to present to you very few tools and best practices to support the very important work of entrepreneurship development. I am a former Women's Business Center Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration in the United States, and I love entrepreneurs. Specifically, in this short session, I will present 4 key points. First, entrepreneurship drives innovation, economic impact, and national competitiveness. Second, entrepreneurs require 3 types of technical assistance in order to be competitive: entrepreneurship training, structured networking, and mentoring. Third, entrepreneurs require 4 types of access to capital schemes to be competitive. Notes good. Government guaranteed funding for domestic business development, like the US SBA 7A program, 504 programs, which are for building development, and microloans. Second is government guaranteed funding for export and import activities, like the US operated XM Bank, and an infrastructure of equity investments, angel investment groups, both formal and informal, to invest up to 250,000 USD, patient capital or social capital investment to invest up to 2 million USD, small venture capital companies to invest up to 30 million, and traditional venture capital companies and investment banks. We need an infrastructure of equity investing to support innovation and competitiveness. These are the tools in the toolkit of a robust entrepreneurship ecosystem. Entrepreneurship drives national competitiveness. But what is competitiveness? Competitiveness is defined by the World Economic Forum as the set of factors, policies, and institutions that determine the level of productivity of a country, taking into account its level of development. To go ahead fast. In my role as advisor to the Washington State Trade Development Alliance, we strive to become a more globally competitive city. We used the model present here behind me to determine our rank in global competitiveness in the United States. Right now, we rank 8th in the United States, behind another port city, San Francisco. This ranking came to be through a rigorous study of comparisons of over 64 points within each pillar of competitiveness. There are 12 pillars of competitiveness. The final spreadsheet of data was hundreds of pages, most of which I did not even look at. However, I did pay attention to the factors directly related to entrepreneurship and SME development. The 12 pillars can be separated into an innovation ladder of 3 categories. I will not introduce those, but you are welcome to the slides, I'm certain, after the event. The point and the key point is entrepreneurship and productivity are drivers of competitiveness. 1, innovative economies employ a strong entrepreneurship ecosystem. 2, entrepreneurship education is required for global competitiveness. And 3, entrepreneurial activity drives growth and job creation, as we've heard from the other audience members or panelists. But there are 2 main points in terms of competitiveness and SME for a nation to look at. 1, business innovation, and 2, business sophistication. Business sophistication, just like entrepreneurship, can be taught. There are a set of tools that can uniquely support that success, and a language of entrepreneurship, a global language that can be shared. So I will close.
Thank you. Sorry.
One moment. In this brief presentation, there are some tools that enable communities to support entrepreneurship, promote innovation, and set the stage for global competitiveness. I propose that it is our responsibility and our opportunity to design an entrepreneurship infrastructure that results in a more sophisticated and highly innovative entrepreneur, one that will be demonstrated by global relevancy and competitiveness. This is our challenge, and this is our responsibility. It is an honor to be participating on this panel. Thank you, Damu Fund, and I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany.
We have 15 minutes for questions and answers and comments now. As we don't have too much time, we're going to allocate 1 minute for a question and 3 minutes for your answer. So there are 3 questions, over here, and over here. The microphone, do we need one? We need one.
There is no translation. Подождите, пожалуйста, нет перевода.
I just ask about the state program of development of entrepreneurship in Kazakhstan. It's by Ministry of Regional Development. And also my questions to Moscow colleague, what about may we give some suggestions to develop for taking part for your program use business? And for Turkey colleague, about the Ankara Technopark and how can small and medium enterprise make business here?
I didn't expect it. There will be 3 questions, so we will answer now. While the mics go to the next,
А микрофоны дадим следующим участникам. I'm from Benchmark Consulting. My first question to Galia Zholdybaeva, Lizat Ibragimov, and Sering Jumagalin. The entrepreneurship support portal that we have currently in place, will it be further on developed, and what will be the areas for its development? I have a question to the speakers that was raised before. How would it be possible with the information technologies to support, with the help of the information technologies to support SMEs? And the question that was raised by Tiffany, how can we raise competitiveness of entrepreneurs in the United States through different types of, how do they raise competitiveness of enterprises? My name is Arman Janabekov. I'm a third-year student of the Faculty of Economy at the Moscow State University. Thank you, the speakers, for your interesting presentations. A lot was said about SMEs development. Within framework of my student papers, I was also working on looking into that as a student, and in fact, small business is a rather vague definition. Sometimes they would use quantitative, sometimes qualitative indicators to define it. Sometimes they would combine both. In Kazakhstan, it's about the number of employees and the value of assets. As the statistics shows, in Kazakhstan, most of those small companies are those trading companies, trading goods and providing services to the population. But you have only 1 minute for your question. Okay, sorry. However, the share of those companies that are involved in science and research is very, very small. And therefore, I would like to ask you what kind of advice you would give to increase the share of such innovative, high-profile enterprises in Kazakhstan. Thank you.
If you have a project or if you are doing something innovative, you can find a place in Ankara. And, you know, I think we have to clarify something. Are we talking about technopark or technology incubator centers? if we are talking about technoparks, there are still very large places and they are located inside the universities. And if you are doing a R&D based any job, you can get involved. If you are talking about incubator, technology development incubator, you have to have a project, and that project should be evaluated by a committee coming from people from university, government, and people coming from COSGAP. And we also support that project. And it doesn't need to be owned by a Turkish people. Even a Kazakh people can come and stay there if they have a, let me say, organization in Turkey. Is it okay?
Thank you. Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you.
Galia, к вам.
The questions that were raised. In terms of question number 1, it's not only one program that we have in Kazakhstan. The government made a decision recently that about 7 programs to develop and support businesses will be merged together. In other words, the entrepreneurship in Kazakhstan will have a single program and they will get the information for a single program. As I mentioned in my presentation, the Ministry of Regional Development deals with SMEs development within the framework of the 2020 Business Development Roadmap, 2020 Employment Roadmap, and Mono City Development. From 1st of January 2015, we will introduce the Unified Business Roadmap Program, and small and medium-sized businesses will be developed within the framework of the same program. Have I answered your question? And now question number 2, business portal development. What would be the area for the areas for that development? Business portal is an information instrument, communication instrument to communicate the types of support existing for businesses, to explain what are the tools that exist. I mentioned that we have 8 large-scale programs, and we have some smaller programs based on those large-scale government programs based on those, and around 50 tools that we have currently all of them are explained in that business portal. And let me say once again that this is an instrument to communicate with the startups, to explain to them how they can work, what should they start with, and how they can proceed. And certainly developing and applying ARV instruments in the process of creating different types of rules and regulations by the state, and different types of rules for the game for businesses, all that will form a uniform platform for them to discuss their problems. I would say that this is what
Use of IT to support SMEs. It is very exciting, the technology that is happening to support entrepreneurs and small businesses. In our presentation at the Damu Fund the other day, we shared some key resources for entrepreneurs in many of the functional areas of the business. For HR in particular, the outsourcing technologies are quite established, and for accounting. So an entrepreneur nowadays, I would encourage you, whether here or in the United States, to focus, of course, on your core competency, on what you love, and let the other people do the other stuff, and use the cloud resources as much as possible.
Sure. We are inside Turkey, we are evaluating all of the projects online inside my organization, so it is very important to reach everybody during support system. So we are taking the offers for projects and tenders online during web, and evaluate it and respond online. Thank you very much.
If I could hear the question well, I understood, if I understood correctly what your question was, in order to become a participant of the program here in Kazakhstan, the program of the business for young people in Kazakhstan, you need to go to the Damu Fund or the Entrepreneurial Fund here, because every country has its own program, but when there is a membership in the international network, then you can nominate young entrepreneurs to participate in the international competitions and contests. So the entrepreneurs from very much interested in a question. Imagine for one instance that all the questions, all the issues that we raised today will be resolved in the future. For instance, billions of people will find jobs and the younger people will start their own enterprises. What is going to happen to the classical businesses? What is going to happen? I would like to hear from Boris Tkachenko's, Ken Scotland, and Jonathan Ordman's. This is a fundamental question.
Well, obviously, we want them to start companies that grow, and they become the staple industries of the future. And the ones that are currently here, as far as, I mean, in terms of your answer, the question about what happens to the other industries, the ones that are currently here are more likely to remain globally competitive and to become more effective as companies if they've had new innovations introduced to them as a result of people starting companies. So I don't think it's necessarily, I mean, the large companies will also go away, and so will small companies. So I don't think the introduction of new companies is necessarily going to change what happens to old companies. It's not going to put them out of business, so to speak.
It's unimaginable what the world of work and productivity will be like, I think, in 10, 20 years. Just think of the things that Mohammed Yunus mentioned today about with regard to healthcare and how it may be transformed through our smartphones, and the idea of genetically modified food transforming agriculture, and even such a conference here where we have so much technological capacity that's changing the way we think. Even copy machines now that print out objects and cars and other things. It's hard to imagine what the world would be like just in 10, 20 years. And to think of how rapid it's changing, just think how much it's changed since in the last 20 years, you know, since we were 20 years younger. None of this was imaginable. So I think that it's just impossible to imagine what the life is going to be. But I suspect that it's going to be for the better, in that I'm an optimist. I have a feeling that it's going to be so many more things. My daughter, for example, would not imagine doing the kinds of career that I'm doing. She has dreams that are far beyond anything that I can cope with, because I can't cope with the smartphone, you know, with the computer. So I think there's plenty of hope for your children.
5 years ago, on this panel, there was no...
Answering your question, I'd like, first of all, for all of us to applaud to this woman entrepreneur with 5 kids. Thanks to people like you, you provide a foundation. The whole modern world rests on your shoulders, people like you. As for traditional, conventional large businesses, and I can speak for those countries where entrepreneurship is only 20 to 25 years old, in the new history, the big businesses, on the contrary, they have an interest, of course, if they realize the importance of this, for there to be as many SMEs around them as possible, because you can outsource many things, for example. This is something that's lacking today. And therefore, I'd like, in the way I see it, the big businesses need to support these processes first and foremost, and then think about how to change themselves in order to remain competitive vis-a-vis the new SMEs. My question is as follows. After one show, 1,000 questions came to me, and people would like to start a new business, where to start, what to do, what are the first basic steps? This is my first question. And the second question, what do you think are the best experiences in terms of interaction between the SMEs and the big businesses? What is being done in this area? For example, we as representatives of the SME sector, what we need to do in order to attract their attention.
Hi, I want to thank you for the question. About how to start. You have an awesome resource with the Damu Fund Entrepreneurship Centers, right? So you have them in 16 regions. So please consider using them. They're very similar to what I run in the United States and have operated. They have access to technical assistance that we've been talking about as a best practice. They're there to support you to get your dreams and vision on paper. That's number one. Know exactly what you want to do and write it down. But visit the fund because they also have access to capital programs for certain industries. So I guess I will start with there.
Yeah, I want to start with the fact that, so every year we organize something called Global Entrepreneurship Week. It's always in November. It happens here in Kazakhstan. Pavel, maybe could stand up if he's here, who organizes it here.
No, he's on the back.
In the back over there.
On the balcony.
But around the world, we have 40,000 events that happen in just 1 week to celebrate entrepreneurs, 40,000 events. And they're designed to help people enter into the culture. So the first thing I would say is go to some startup community events. They're social, they're fun, they get to experience that this is a creative social experience. And of course, and I also want to thank the Damu Fund for your hospitality and to say absolutely you should look at the available resources already in your community. But there's an enormous amount of information online. People are mapping the various resources. So it's very easy to be able to do that. And finally, the last question was about the second part of her question.
The second part of the question was how to start a
Steps
business.
to start.
Oh, yeah. Big and small business, how they cooperate.
Oh, yes. So, for example, Michael Dell invited me to lunch. I went to lunch, never met him. I was like, why would Michael Dell want to talk to me of Dell Computer? And he said, I don't want my company to go the same way as BlackBerry might go with Apple. He said, we have to engage with startups or we will become irrelevant. So I think big companies have to find a way to not view new starts as irritating competitors. And what they're now looking for is I have dozens of big companies that want to work with us in startup communities because A, they want the talent, B, they want the innovations, and C, they also want to invest in these guys, but they also want the culture. They want the culture of those people who are creative thinkers to work in their large companies. So I think it's a symbiotic relationship between big firms and small firms. It's no longer one of competition. So, and I think certainly as I look at it from a global perspective, even companies that used to use their governments to try to keep new entrants out, keep their monopoly going, that's changing. Because now they've realized it's not a question of us, it's not a question of competition, it's a question we all need each other. It's a village. You know, all boats rise on an incoming tide. Thank you.
Thank you.